Reddit story: Losing myself in love. When expectations take away. My identity, have you ever loved someone so deeply, but then realized that despite all the love, you no longer felt like yourself? This is the story of Emma and Noah. They had been together for 2 years, and in the beginning, everything seemed perfect. They shared dreams, laughs, and ambitions. But as time passed, Emma began to feel that the relationship wasn't allowing her to be who she truly was. She loved Noah, but she realized that in order to move forward, she would need to let go of something precious, her own identity. Emma and Noah met in their final year of college, and from the very beginning, their connection was undeniable. They clicked instantly, shared common interests, and both had a strong desire to make their relationship work. Noah was the kind of person who had big dreams and high expectations for his future. Emma, on the other hand, was independent and creative, always thriving when given the space to express herself. Together, they were a perfect match, or so Emma thought. At first, everything felt easy. They would go on spontaneous adventures, talk about their hopes for the future, and support each other's dreams. Noah always pushed Emma to be her best self at work, in her personal life, and in their relationship. He encouraged her to take on new challenges, and he constantly reminded her of her potential. But after a year of being together, Emma began to feel like something was off. Noah's encouragement slowly turned into expectations. He began to have a clear vision of what he wanted their future to look like, a future that didn't always include Emma's individuality. He expected Emma to fit into his plans, constantly checking on her, suggesting things she should or shouldn't do, and taking charge of decisions that were once mutual. At first, Emma didn't mind. She thought it was just part of being in a relationship, the willingness to compromise. But as time went on, Emma started feeling like she was losing herself in the process. Noah didn't seem to understand her need for space and independence. Whenever she wanted to spend time alone or explore her own passions, Noah felt neglected and would pressure her to spend more time with him. Emma loved him deeply, but it felt like she was constantly walking on eggshells. One day, Emma realized something that she hadn't noticed before. She was no longer making decisions based on what she wanted, but on what Noah expected from her. She couldn't remember the last time she had done something just for herself, without Noah's opinion creeping into her thoughts. Her friends began to notice the change too. They commented on how she had become distant, quieter, and less confident. Emma was caught in a cycle of trying to please Noah, but in doing so, she had lost touch with who she really was. One evening, after Noah insisted on making all the plans for their vacation, Emma reached her breaking point. She had wanted to go somewhere quiet, just the two of them, to relax and recharge. But Noah had other plans, a trip filled with activities and socializing with friends he insisted on inviting along. Emma couldn't take it anymore. She felt suffocated, overwhelmed, and emotionally drained. They had a long conversation that night. Emma told Noah how she had been feeling, how she loved him, but felt like she had no space left to breathe. Noah, however, didn't seem to understand. He was upset, accusing Emma of not prioritizing their relationship and of being overly sensitive. The argument escalated, and in the end, Emma realized something that broke her heart. She still loved Noah, but she no longer recognized herself in this relationship. She loved him, but she couldn't keep sacrificing her identity to make the relationship work. No matter how much love they shared, Emma knew that without her sense of self, she wouldn't be happy. This story sheds light on a painful reality. You can love someone deeply, but sometimes the relationship forces you to lose who you truly are. Emma loved Noah, but she could no longer ignore the fact that she had been slowly giving up her personal space and freedom for the sake of the relationship. Noah's intentions may have been good, but his overwhelming expectations and constant need for control pushed Emma to a point where she could no longer recognize herself. It's easy to get lost in a relationship when you stop prioritizing yourself. Emma wanted to please Noah, but in doing so, she gave up her own dreams, passions, and desires. In a healthy relationship, both people should feel free to pursue their own individual goals while still supporting each other. But when one person becomes too dependent on the other, or when the other person's expectations become too controlling, the balance shifts, and that's when problems arise. This is why it's so important to maintain your own sense of identity. No one should have to lose themselves to be in a relationship. Emma's decision to walk away wasn't easy, but it was necessary. She needed space to find herself again, to reconnect with the things that made her feel alive and confident. Love is beautiful, but you can't give everything to someone else if you lose yourself in the process. This story resonates with so many people who have experienced the struggle of trying to keep a relationship alive while losing themselves. When love requires you to compromise so much of your individuality, it can leave you feeling lost and disconnected. You Choosing Myself commented, "I was in a similar relationship where I kept giving up my own dreams to please my partner. Eventually, I realized I couldn't keep losing myself, and I had to let go. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was the best decision." 45.7K likes, "Sometimes the hardest decision is choosing yourself. Love doesn't mean losing yourself." You Healing After Heartbreak shared, "I stayed in a relationship thinking love would be enough, but I was losing myself, and eventually I had to walk away. It wasn't about not loving them, it was about rediscovering who I was." 40.5K likes, "Love should allow you to be your true self. If you feel like you're losing yourself, it's time to take a step back and find your own path again." You Living For Me wrote, "I realized I had given up so much of myself in my relationship. I loved them, but I didn't recognize who I was anymore. Letting go was painful, but it was the only way to find myself again." 37.3K likes, "Sometimes letting go is the only way to find yourself and rebuild your life." You Finding Freedom said, "I had to walk away from a relationship that was suffocating me. I loved them, but I realized that I needed my freedom to grow. It was painful, but now I am finally free to live my life on my terms." 33.9K likes, "Choosing yourself is the most freeing decision you can make. It's hard, but it's worth it in the end." Emma's story is a reminder that no matter how much you love someone, you can't lose yourself in the process. A relationship should allow both people to grow, support each other's goals, and share dreams. But when one person's expectations start to take away from your individuality, it's time to take a step back. Sometimes walking away is the hardest choice, but it's also the bravest. I was hurt, but I still love you. And I'm willing to forgive you, but it's not going to be easy. Have you ever been in a relationship where everything felt perfect, but then one day you discovered a painful truth? Betrayal? The heartbreak that comes with realizing the person you trust the most has hurt you in the worst way possible. This is the story of Rachel and Tom. They were deeply in love, but everything changed when Rachel found out that Tom had cheated on her. The question is, how do you move forward when the trust you built has been shattered? Rachel loved Tom, but she was torn between her love for him and the hurt she felt. She had to decide whether she could forgive him and rebuild their relationship, or if it was time to walk away. Rachel and Tom had been in a happy, committed relationship for 3 years. They met through mutual friends in college and their connection was immediate. Their love was deep, and they seemed perfect for each other. For the first 2 years, everything felt effortless. They spent time traveling, learning about each other, and talking about their future together. They shared similar dreams, to build a life full of love, adventure, and perhaps a family one day. Tom was kind, attentive, and Rachel admired his ambition and drive. He made her feel like the most important person in the world. But things started to change after their second anniversary. Tom became busier at work and started to withdraw emotionally. At first, Rachel thought it was just stress from work, and she tried to be patient. But over time, Tom's behavior became more distant. He would often cancel plans at the last minute or come home late without explanation. Rachel began to feel that something was off, but she couldn't put her finger on it. One day, while they were out to dinner, Rachel saw something that broke her heart. Tom's phone buzzed with a message. It was from a woman Rachel didn't recognize, and the message was flirtatious. Rachel's stomach dropped. She excused herself to the bathroom and couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. When she returned, she saw Tom smiling at his phone, texting back the woman. Rachel's heart raced. She felt sick, but couldn't bring herself to confront him just yet. Later that night, when they were alone, Rachel decided to confront Tom. She asked him about the message, and at first, Tom denied everything. But Rachel could see it in his eyes, the guilt. He admitted to having an affair with another woman at his workplace. He told her it was a mistake, that it meant nothing, and he was truly sorry. But the pain Rachel felt was indescribable. She was crushed. How could Tom betray her like that? How could someone she trusted with all her heart hurt her so deeply? In the days that followed, Rachel was overwhelmed with emotions. She loved Tom, but she couldn't get the image of him with someone else out of her mind. She felt betrayed, broken, and unsure of what to do. Her friends tried to comfort her, but they could see the confusion in her eyes. Rachel didn't know if she should walk away from the relationship or try to work through it. But one thing was clear. She still loved Tom, and despite everything, she didn't want to lose him. Rachel's internal struggle was exhausting. She tried to forgive Tom, but every time she looked at him, she couldn't shake the image of his betrayal. She needed time, but she didn't know how long it would take for her to trust him again. This story highlights a painful truth that many of us have experienced. Loving someone who betrays your trust can tear you apart. Rachel's love for Tom was real, but the betrayal was undeniable. In relationships, trust is the foundation, and when that trust is broken, it can be incredibly difficult to rebuild. Forgiveness isn't just about saying the words. It's about healing and allowing yourself the space to process the pain and decide if you can truly move forward. In this case, Rachel faced an incredibly difficult choice. She loved Tom, but the betrayal left a scar. The hardest part wasn't the love. It was the shattered trust that would take time to heal. Love doesn't mean you have to forget the hurt, but it does mean you're willing to rebuild. Forgiving someone doesn't mean the pain will disappear instantly. It's a long, emotional process. Rachel had to come to terms with the fact that even though Tom's actions hurt her deeply, she still had love for him. The decision to forgive and try again would take everything she had, her heart, her patience, and her trust. And yet sometimes, forgiveness is the only thing that can allow a relationship to survive. But can she forgive him and trust him again? Only time would tell. This story resonates with so many people who have faced the heartbreak of betrayal in a relationship. When you love someone deeply, but feel like the trust has been broken, It creates a deep emotional wound. You Healing and Forgiving commented, I loved my partner so much, but after finding out about their affair, I was lost. I wanted to forgive, but I wasn't sure if I could ever trust them again. It took time, but we worked through it. Forgiveness is hard, but it can be worth it. 44.1K likes, forgiveness is never easy, especially when trust is shattered. But sometimes, it's the only way forward. You letting go to move. Forward shared. After my partner cheated on me, I had to make the decision to either forgive or walk away. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, but I decided to forgive. It wasn't easy, but it allowed us to heal and move forward together. 40.8K likes, forgiving someone doesn't mean forgetting the pain, but it can help you find peace and move forward. You Starting Fresh wrote, I stayed in a relationship after my partner cheated because I still loved them. We worked through it, but it took time and effort from both of us. Trust wasn't rebuilt overnight, but we learned to communicate better. 36.5K likes, trust is something that needs to be earned again, but love and communication can rebuild what was broken. You Healing Together said, I didn't know if I could ever forgive them, but I realized that holding on to anger was only hurting me. I forgave them, and although it wasn't easy, it allowed us to start fresh and work on rebuilding our trust. 34.2K likes, sometimes forgiveness is not about excusing the wrongdoing. It's about freeing yourself from the pain and choosing to move forward. Rachel's story is a reminder that love isn't always enough to fix everything, but forgiveness can heal wounds and allow a relationship to move forward. It's not easy, and it takes time, but the choice to forgive is one that can rebuild trust and create a stronger bond. He left me for someone else, then invited me to their wedding as a joke. Welcome back to the channel. Some breakups leave behind silence. Others leave behind cruelty. Jade spent 4 years with Mark. She thought he was her forever, until one day he ended everything, not with a conversation, not with closure, just a text. I need space. It's over. Months passed. Then she heard the news. Mark was getting married, not to her, but to the woman he met while they were still together. And then a wedding invitation showed up at her door, with her name, her address. At first, she thought it was a mistake, a weird accident. But what waited for her at that wedding was not forgiveness, not reconciliation. It was revenge dressed in white. With a glass of champagne and a private joke she was never supposed to laugh at. Jade didn't want to go, but something in her said, maybe this is his way of making peace. She bought a soft blue dress, brought a modest gift, told herself she would sit in the back, leave after dessert. The wedding was elegant. Flowers everywhere Mark looked. Happy. Talia was beautiful, kind. She even greeted Jade with a small, polite smile, but something felt off. People stared at her longer than normal. Whispered one bridesmaid leaned in and said, "You're Jade, right?" And when Jade nodded, the woman laughed. Not kindly, but knowingly, Jade sat down at her assigned seat. There was a small white box waiting for each guest, personalized with their names. Hers said, "To Jade, with love." Inside wasn't candy or soap. It was a note. A torn piece of paper written in handwriting she knew. It read, "Glad you could make it. Still second best." And that was the moment Jade realized this wasn't a kind invitation. It was a performance. And she had shown up to play the fool in someone else's finale. Some people move on. Others make a spectacle of it. Mark didn't just leave Jade. He left her, then built a stage and invited her to sit front row. so he could feel powerful in the presence of someone he once hurt. This wasn't about love, it was about dominance, about making sure Jade knew she was replaceable. That's not healing, that's cruelty. And what does it say about a man who needs to humiliate to feel victorious? Jade didn't cry that night. She didn't make a scene. She folded the note, tucked it in her clutch, and left. Not because she was weak, but because some battles don't deserve an audience. And walking away was the first time in years she did something only for herself. Now let's hear what Reddit had to say. Because sometimes healing comes not from the apology you never got, but from the strangers who would have never let you walk in that room alone. Invited to watch him win wrote, he didn't invite her to share his joy. He invited her to witness her replacement. That's not celebration. That's a staged humiliation. 12.7K likes when they need you to watch to feel better about themselves. That's not closure. That's cruelty. This was a battle. He scripted wrote, he built the whole wedding as a performance, and she was the prop. The note proved it. 11.3K likes a man secure in his future doesn't use his past to feel superior. She should have burned, the note wrote. She should have walked up and read that note aloud. Embarrass him the way he tried to do to her. 9.8. K likes sometimes silence is the loudest revenge. Second, best was too kind wrote, if he thinks she's second best, that means he still thinks about her first. 10.5. K likes let that be the final twist. He never stopped needing her attention, she just stopped giving it. These comments remind us that some people don't want closure, they want control. But healing is walking away before they even notice. Have you ever been invited somewhere only to realize it was never really for you? Share your story in the comments, because your silence is sometimes the loudest line in someone else's performance.